Make a crowd.
Γεια σας και από μένα. Ευχαριστούμε τη Δανάη. Oops. Μου έφυγε το μικρόφωνο τελείως. Έχει ένα θεματάκι. Έχει ένα θεματάκι αυτό το μικρόφωνο. Λοιπόν, να ξεκινήσουμε.
Ναι.
Λοιπόν, καλησπέρα. Αυτό το πάνελ θα γίνει στα αγγλικά, οπότε περνάμε στα αγγλικά. Good afternoon and welcome to the panel Wasted, If the World Could Speak. In this panel, we will present the exhibition that you saw as you enter the hall. This is the second such exhibition by John Veikos and Anna Sbokou. Last year we saw, actually, last year we saw the first Wasted exhibition in the Architect Show. It was a very surprising exhibition. It was refreshing, intriguing, and very beautiful. The pieces were so unique that they're also traveling abroad and they're exhibited abroad. One would think, okay, we saw new pieces from recycled materials making the way back to reuse. What else is there more to say? So this year, this is from this year, John and Anna surprised us again. This time, it's not an exhibition about materials only, but an exhibition about people, stories, and memory. The memory of the materials which makes the way from one use to another, the stories they carry with them, the intriguing secrets they are not lost, but reinterpreted and reinvented as these materials get new uses. The interaction of the materials with the users. And very important, it's exciting senses and also exciting the mind. So just imagine how much storytelling we are missing when we demolish a building and throw away their materials in a landfill. Imagine how much more our lives would be richer if there were more stories flowing around from materials and buildings that are not demolished and disappear, but remain part of the city fabric, the community narrative, and our collective memory. Imagine how much more in common we would have in our shared public spaces. So recycling buildings and materials is not a directive that is coming from a bureaucratic system, but really a need that we have as human beings to experience space and architecture in a more intimate and more exciting way. And this is what we will tackle today in our panel. First, I would like to introduce our speakers, John Veikos and Anna Sbokou, the designers and curators of the exhibition Wasted that you saw in the entrance. Before I sit with you, I will introduce John Veikos is an architect. He's built over 2 million square meters worldwide. He's the founder and director of Praxis, Design Delivery, and special project director at Mosesian Architecture in London, UK. Anna Sbokou is a lighting designer and founder of tAS Light Studio in London and Athens. She also served on the board of directors of the International Association of Lighting Designers and currently on the board of Business of Light Organization. Thank you for joining us both. I'll come and join. Oh, actually, I'll have to stand here. I have no microphone. Sorry about that. Έχουμε, ωραία. So I'll come and join you. Okay. Καλά φέτ. Okay. Is it okay? You hear me? Okay.
Okay, yeah.
Sorry about that. So, Anna, as I said in the opening, we are seeing this year the second version of the Wasted project. What has evolved from the first exhibition and what has changed?
So as you mentioned, for starters, thank you for having us for another year and for the talk and for the installation. So as you already mentioned, last year was more about production waste and the raw material and the opportunity that that provides us with from a design standpoint and what could be done. We set up an exhibition that was more a gallery-like approach, so it had a very specific relationship between object and audience. This year we decided to move it a step further into the design process, so we started looking at project waste and urban waste, so material and objects that already have had a life cycle, that already have had a certain level of use, and whether there could be a further life given to them. That provided us with the opportunity to set up a more immersive exhibition and installation, something that's more tactile. It's referring more to the senses rather than just kind of the visual and aesthetical approach. And for us to have a lot of fun in the process, I guess.
That's most important. Okay, John, for those of people who came in and saw the exhibition, can you walk us through the exhibition? Explain to us what we are looking at?
Sure. Again, thank you for the opportunity of having us here again this year. It was really a pleasure to work with all the fabricators, so big thank you to them for the tremendous effort they put forward. As Anna started saying, last year was more of a gallery. I would say the analog for this year is more of a theater, where it's a little bit more about illusion, it's a little bit more about the feelings of the materials and the false perspectives that you get and the reflections and seeing things that aren't there and understanding the relationship between the body and the object inside of a space more than just viewing at an object as such, as we understand buildings in the context of the city. If we start walking through with that in mind, the LED panel we're looking at now is kind of the marquee of the show, and it's bringing people in. The tunnel itself is more of the stage, where it's composed entirely of waste from buildings that are being renovated in Athens, but also, and I think importantly to point out, a lot of trade show waste. Right? This type of event generates a lot of material that can't really be used again. So we've incorporated within the tunnel a lot of previous shows that different companies have done and used pieces from that as part of showing another venue for waste material and reuse of that object. As you leave the stage, you get privy to the backstage area where you kind of are looking to see the diva. And you can't really find her. She's backstage. She's hidden between glass and mirrors. And as described by Panos Iliopoulos, who did the diva, she's rotating, she's spinning, she's the center of the world. Right? So everything is around her, but she's thorny and she's not approachable. There's other actors in the same set, and they have their own space, but the diva is the centerpiece. And the analog is really that. It's really going through and experiencing the relationship with materials, touching, feeling the annoyance of grit on the floor, the sound of metal when you walk on it, the coldness of glass and concrete, and then the warmth of fabric and the plushness of the comfort.
Wow, okay. Now, Anna, you mentioned there's a lot of transformation in Athens, a lot of demolition of old buildings, and I think you gave us a hint that really fed into the design of the exhibition. So how did the process of urban renewal actually inspire and fit into the Wasted project?
It almost became part of our starting point, completely by great luck, I guess. We are currently working on the lighting design of a project that is a building that is being renovated in the center of Athens. It's right behind the Metropoli. It's a 70s building, beautifully done, stunning materials, which are all going to be ripped out for the sake of the renovation. So it's kind of stripping it down to its skin to be renovated and be reused by new tenants, completely new brief. So it was in a very good condition. So we started thinking, okay, all of these materials, where are they going to go? All of these perfectly usable still. So they've had, decades of a life, granted, but they could still have a few more. So thankfully, in collaboration with the client and Flux Laboratory, we got permission to take some of those materials. So part of what we see in the exhibition and the installation is that raw product material rather than first use, which we've kind of rethought and reconsidered and redesigned with John to see what can be done. So office partition, like 1970s, really beautiful, aluminum frame, glass, solid wood partitions. There are doors, a series of those doors, which we did an exploded image from. Dection shelving, something that is quite long lasting, and felt that it would be a shame to just dump into the skip, basically. So whatever could be used, we took, and we have integrated in the design of this installation. And also part of those pieces, the light wall that John mentioned, the marquee, those light boxes have been retrofitted, upgraded, and are actually going back into the new project as it's going to be redesigned. So it's not only a second life, some of those items might actually get a third life cycle to them. So it was really important for us to start thinking, what is out there, and especially now that, as you mentioned, Athens is being almost fully being renovated. It has a great repository of beautiful old buildings that thankfully the majority are starting to now be renovated rather than torn down. The design and architecture is starting to shift into reusing those buildings rather than looking for, virgin plots and building from scratch. And that is an immense pool of great material and inspiration source for their second and after kind of life.
Wow. It seems like almost like every building that's been demolished has another building that's waiting for its materials.
Basically, that could be the chain. That could actually be the chain, that one building's waste becomes another building's main source of materials.
Absolutely. So. Now, John, you said in our conversation that materials have memory. And I wanted to ask you about how do we tackle the memory or the potential narrative of the story that the materials have to say. And Louis Kahn used to say that the material, or what the building wants to do, or what the material wants to do. And so you suggest what the materials wants to say, and how does that come into the installation, into the project?
Look, I think Louis Kahn is talking about the material as a raw material. What does it want to be? What can it excel at? Stone can do certain things that wood can't do. Wood can do certain things that steel can't do. This doesn't distract from that at all. Those are all still true. But when you're working with recycled material, there's another layer of information on top of that, which is what it also was. A million hands have touched a handrail in a building. In Reflections in the show, that's sort of harking back to the idea of how many faces that glass has actually reflected over the 50 years life of the building. Right? Tens of thousands of faces have been reflected in that. Echoes of stories, smells of coffee and cigarettes, and right, all of that somehow the material captures and inherits. So it's not only what the material wants to be, but on top of that, what is the narrative of the material, and how does that get incorporated to enrich the design that we're moving forward with? Right? We're adding another layer of information and compounding the history of that same piece, of that artifact.
Mm-hmm. Anna, the exhibition this year is more about experience and less about craft, although we see the craft embedded in all the pieces. Now, it's about material, stories, light, and color. And I would like to speak a little bit about light and color, because that's your expertise. So yes. Tell us a little bit, how does that enhance the experience, or how does it manipulate the experience?
So it's almost like, because it was always meant to be a more immersive experience, for me, one of the most immersive things is allowing people to become playful, right? So one of the installations, what is the light wall that we're just looking at the moment, it became the platform, almost an internal joke of every lighting designer, because very often architects and interior designers are trying to match painted colors to light colors, and we lighting designers know that this is next to impossible. So basically, we've created almost like a tic-tac-toe large-scale game where two players can play. And in an attempt in vain, I will give you a bit of a spoiler, to match the color of the light to the color of the surface. That's also a very interesting kind of way to see what light does to color, right, to surfaces and materials. So because they're adjacent to them, they can see the transformation of how does the color show under white light, colored light, what kind of color light, what kind of white light as well. And this conversation could go on and on for a very long time. So materials themselves, same as anything else in architecture, they do have a life during daytime, and thankfully it's a beautiful one. But when the sun goes down, then that becomes literally a theatrical stage where you can completely transform a material in a space via the use of light. Whether that means, elevating it to, something almost godly-like, or completely destroying it during those hours. So there is a statement there made to that, how materials can change their form and view and feel as well. And there is a small kind of undertone. Also, it was a very conscious choice, for example, in the tunnel, that we used a fairly warm tone of light and fairly dim, more of a homey feel to it. That changed your feel of touch. So marbles feels a little bit softer, a little bit warmer. Wood, for sure, gives you all of the warmth that it has to offer. So all of the materials get their slightly different version of sense and feel, depending on the lighting that you see them under, and their context as well, which is another thing that we paid a lot of attention to.
Mm-hmm. Now, John, you speak a lot about the opportunities that the existing materials offer, the potential of being inspired by what is there before we apply our own ideas. And Ms. van der Rohe would say form follows function. Now, in the exhibition, do you suggest that form follows material or form follows narrative?
Well, you have me arguing with two very powerful ghosts in this talk, huh?
I
Louis
raised
Kahn
them.
and Ms. van der Rohe, pretty good company.
I think form follows function. Function is a narrative. There are lots of narratives in architecture. Architecture isn't one thing. It follows, architecture, right? It's the culmination of all of the arts. So it's not as simple as form follows function. It's not as simple as form follows narrative. It is really an intertwining and a weaving of all of these very important elements into something that yields a relationship to the body and the relationship to the people that is unique, right? That drives a unique experience. So the more narrative, the more understanding, the more ways that architecture gets things right, the more successful it is. Right? Form follows function, yes, it needs to. But form also needs to follow materiality. It needs to follow use. It needs to follow building codes. It needs to follow all sorts of things for it to sing, for it to work as one resonant piece of architecture.
Right. Okay, I see we're almost done with time, so we will make this short. Anna, I want to ask you, assembly and disassembly of buildings and their materials passports. Are we looking at a new process in design?
We're hoping. I think there are a lot of people in the realm of architecture and design that are definitely looking for other ways to think. Partly we kind of have to. We've reached kind of the end line of when it comes to environment and sustainability. On the other hand, we're also reaching a saturation point of been there, done that, seen it, heard it, right? And it's part of the, I think, human characteristic to renovate ourselves and rethink everything. Architecture, design, lighting is a beautiful realm to reinvent the process, reinvent the result as well. And there's a lot to be said about what's already there rather than trying to invent the wheel, which again, it's already there.
So it's not only renovating buildings, but to renovate design itself, right?
Could be.
Okay. And John, urban mining, and I like the word you use, cannibalizing old buildings. Now, prior to demolition, are we looking at a new relationship between the new and the old?
I hope so, yes. I think it's important for us to carry and live in our history and have a relationship to who we are and where we came from, and not reject the old so quickly, but incorporate it into our new thinking and our new way forward. Cannibalism, yes, maybe a little bit of a violent word, but it is the idea of feeding off of what's already there and making a new value out of it. It had value, it'll have a higher and newer value if it's reused and brought forward in our culture. These are our public spaces. These are our private spaces. These are what we see and what we occupy all day long. It matters what our eyes look at and how our body feels in relationship to the space that we're in. It changes our mindset, and it's important for us to be healthier in our relationship with our spaces.
So renew, but keep the connection with the old, really.
Renew, keep the connection with the
And
old.
the material really does this bridging. It can do this bridging.
Yeah, the material does the bridging, and the material carries its history
Right.
with us, with the narratives that we tell about it, right? It's part of our storytelling. It's part of what makes us human.
Great. So we invite you to have a look at the exhibition. We hope now you have a new way of reading the exhibition. So thank you, John. Thank you, Anna. And thank you all
you.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.